Welcome to the Former Starving Artist Podcast, the podcast where starving artists learn to adopt an entrepreneur mindset to gain full autonomy over their creative careers. I'm your host, Angie Cavlin, and I interview entrepreneurs, artists, and coaches to help us understand how we can turn our art into a profitable business. Stay tuned. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Former Starving Artist Podcast, the podcast where starving artists learn to adopt an entrepreneur mindset to gain full autonomy over their creative careers. I am your host, Angie Cavlin. Today, we are talking everything YouTube. And I won't have a lot of time for an introduction because my guest was so awesome that I'm probably going to need to make part two. So we're going to keep it really short. I'm going to get right to the interview because it is a doozy. It's so good. So if you want to learn how to grow on YouTube, this is my guy right here. My incredible guest today is an award-winning, critically acclaimed, and simply a very beloved Canadian writer, director, editor known for Sex After Kids, How to Plan an Orgy in a Small Town, Ash Grove, and most recently, Daniel's Gotta Die. He's also an award-winning director for the Canadian television classic, Baroness von Sketch, and now he is dominating YouTube with his plant-based cooking channel, PB with Jay. So not only has Jeremy won like every accolade and award for his movies, he is also the most generous mentor that anyone can ask for. He has helped me. He has helped many other filmmakers. He's made me a better screenwriter. He is incredible. I am so thrilled that you guys get a piece of him. So here he is. Welcome, Jeremy Lalonde. So thank you so much for coming and putting up with me.
Oh, of course. Any day.
So I started the podcast because I'm pretty sure you can, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I was feeling some frustrations with the industry and the direction it was going. And I realized I have no transferable skills. I can't just go out and get a job. I literally just devoted my life to film and television. And I said, okay, well, there's no plan B. So what do I do? So I don't know anything about marketing or business. So I said, okay, I'm going to treat this as an entrepreneur. And I started doing a lot of courses and stuff on marketing and everything. And so I now want to bring on people that have made the transition into content creation and going into a different direction. And also to educate people in film and television that I think there's going to be a wave of indie coming along, kind of like what happened with the music industry. But at least that's my prediction.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really important for filmmakers or any artist to pivot into doing their own thing and having more autonomy over their career because the studio system just isn't going to work. So I, first of all, wanted to give a little bit of backstory about you. So you've been at this whole filmmaking thing for a bit. What movie or TV show made you want to be a filmmaker?
I don't know if there was ever just one. I wanted to say it was like the Muppet movie, but I think that was just, I don't know, I just love the Muppets. I'm going to say it's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And
Okay.
I think the reason is this. It's solely that when I watched that movie with my dad when I was really young, I thought he was going to die laughing. I literally thought my dad was going to have a heart attack. He was laughing so hard at this movie. And I remember just sitting there going, I want to do that to somebody. I want to be able to make somebody laugh uncontrollably to the point where and I don't want to kill anyone, but I just like that's what
but I
power is
close.
that? No, but it was just the idea that it's like, oh wow, like you can like have an effect on somebody that's that strong that it overtakes their body, you know?
Oh,
and you can transfer that to any emotion. Like I want to make someone cry, I want to make someone whatever. But there's something that was so powerful about that. And then what really became ultimately as I, became a filmmaker, what I realized, I'm like, oh, what I just really want to do is connect with other people. And I want other people to feel like they're not alone and that, in any way, right? And, and so it started off as comedy. So I'd say Planes, Trains, probably, for a weird reason.
That's such a sweet reason. So what year was your first film?
It was the untitled work of Paul Shepard, which nobody has seen. And if you have, congrats. You're one of 100 people that. No, that's not true. I mean, we did a little festival circuit, but that was just. I mean, this will be a reoccurring conversation on this podcast, I'm sure, but of just like the lack of things being able to get seen and whatnot. So yeah, so 2010 was my first feature came out, which God, feels it was forever ago, and it kind of was in a lot of ways. As far as like indie filmmaking goes, is I was born like a little bit too late to be a proper indie filmmaker because we missed that DVD bubble,
Yeah.
and the bubble of like when you could actually make money. Like my producers always say, especially for stuff like Sex After Kids and How to Plan an Orgy, just based on the title alone, if we'd have made that movie 5 years earlier, 8 years earlier, we would have made $1 million just on DVD, just because of the title, Blockbuster, like Blockbuster and all that kind of stuff. So, there was a period of time, even in Canada, where it's never a good time to be a filmmaker, where you could kind of like eke out a bit of a living as an indie filmmaker because of, DVD sales to places like Blockbuster and whatnot. And then when that vanished, nothing replaced it, really. Yeah. And so it became this giant hole in the funding system. So I came in right at the tail end of that, which was great. At this time in our industry, we also had this thing called Bravo Fact, which was amazing, which was, did you ever?
I remember Bravo Fact, yeah.
Yeah, so for those that don't know or are too young to have been around for it, Bravo is a TV station here in Canada. Still is, maybe? I don't know. I don't know TV anymore.
I feel like they're getting bought by everybody.
Yeah. Anyway, by the time this airs, maybe it won't be. So they used to have a half-hour program once a week called Bravo. I don't know what it was called, but it was on Bravo. They would air shorts by Canadian filmmakers. And so you could apply to get money to make one of these shorts. And it really was, they were just giving you a licensing fee to be able to play it, right? But you didn't get the money until after. So you had to bankroll it before. But they were always good about paying it. So it was...
It's always like catch-22. It's like letter of intent.
Yeah, you get a letter of blah, blah, blah. And they were always good. I ended up doing two. No, did I do two? Yeah, I did two with them. The first one I did was called Hoff's New Direction. And it was and I decided I'm going to do a mockumentary. So it's going to be a calling card for this feature I want to make. And it was done. So I wanted to keep the tone and whatnot similar. So it's about the world's foremost finger painting artist who wants to take his work in a bold new direction. And it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's called Hoff's New Direction.
Oh my God!
And the second one I made is called Bastards, and it was a proof of concept for a TV show I wanted to make. So I only did shorts as a way of like exercising other things I wanted to do on a bit larger scale. Otherwise, I saw them as useless tools.
Yeah, it's more of a calling card to be like, hey, I need money to make the movie or something.
Yeah, and I have friends that still make shorts. Like a good buddy of mine, Gavin Michael Bluth, he's made a bunch of features, but he still makes shorts every year. And I'm like, good for him. Like I think he just loves making shit. But I just don't
he's addicted.
Get it. He's addicted to it, which is great. But I'm like, I don't get that. I think he likes it because he gets to experiment. He gets to play a lot. And it feels like, it's similar to what I like to do on YouTube. So there's that. But it blows my mind that he loves to do it. But yeah, that's my advice to filmmakers, especially now when everyone's got one of these. For those that are just listening on audio, I'm holding up my iPhone. Just make a feature.
Okay, you talked about your dad nearly dying from planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
So have you gotten that? Have you gotten that kind of reaction from people for your movie?
I have, actually. I've been very fortunate, especially with the comedies that I've made. We've had some really spectacular experiences. And it's kind of probably the closest I'll ever be to feeling like a rock star that's on stage and feeling the audience's vibe, where we've, in particular, had to plan an orgy. And Sex After Kids, too, to some extent. I remember being in audiences for those films. And especially I remember in particular, there's this one screening I want to say it was in Calgary for How to Plan an Orgy in a Small Town. And I was just sitting in the back of the theater and it was packed. And it was just vibrating the whole room, And there was this one person that was literally like one or two rows in front of me who fell out of their chair laughing.
Oh my God. That's
and
amazing.
I was just like, and I still remember it. So it's like, that's the best feeling ever. Is just watching someone laugh uncontrollably. It was like, this is the peak of it and whatnot.
That's amazing.
The thing about too is we're making comedies was when you travel with them, it's like, and I'm always blown away by comedic filmmakers who don't sit in the screenings for their films when they travel with them to festivals. Because that's how that's where you learn so much about yourself too. It's like, where do the laughs play everywhere? Where do the laughs play regionally? And where do like the little things that you want people to laugh at, but only sometimes they laugh at, hit. You know, there's always those jokes that I always have. I'm like, this is going to be for like 10% of the people, but if at least one or two people laugh in each screening, I'll be really, really happy. You know? But for me, the testament, like my favorite experiences too, on top of the laughs, is just in the moments where there's a more dramatic moment in one of my films, or like a shocking twist or whatever, and you hear like a little gasp or a sigh. Like those are the ones that are even more rewarding for me, because it's not that hard to make someone laugh. You know, laugh is shock and surprise and whatnot. But to get someone to like gasp or sigh or something like that, that means they're emotionally connected. Like they're in, you've got them, right? So those ones I ultimately found more rewarding when those ones worked out.
So I don't want to get sad here. Daniel's Gotta Die. That was Bob Saget's last film.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it like working with him?
Working with Bob, I mean, that whole movie was an interesting experience because I was attached to that film for a long time. And it took on a couple different iterations of getting made, and then and then an actor would pull out and the financing went away. And then we thought the film was actually dead, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. And because it was written to like be shot at a giant mansion in like Northern Ontario kind of thing, right? Like a cottage, like a family home in the middle of nowhere. And so COVID hit, and my producers called me up and said, hey, we think it's back on. We have an opportunity to make the film in the Cayman Islands. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They're like, do you think we can rewrite it to take place there as opposed to up north? I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we just need an isolated place. And it's like a mansion's a mansion anywhere. And because it's about a big, rich family, I mean, it makes more sense in the Caymans. I just never would have conceived it there because I'm a Canadian filmmaker and you don't do that kind of thing because you're just going to end up in tears. At that point, things came together pretty quickly. Obviously, at the time, we didn't know it would be Bob's last performance. But he was great. I mean, I think Bob's one of those people that never really got all the opportunities he wanted in terms of kind of the roles he did, because he got, pigeonholed a little bit into a certain type. Like either, he was either Danny Tanner or the guy that sucked dick for coke, Those are the two kind of, but that's just it. Like those are the two exact opposites.
Yeah, there's nothing land the middle.
Right. And that's what I wanted from him, was like, I want the middle. I want both of those in the same role, and that's what we ended up doing. So that's what was, I mean, even though it's, it's not like we had him in a lead role or anything like that, but what I like to think about for that role was he got to kind of show off all of his flavors a little bit. But he was lovely to work with, even though he came in late to the project. Like, he really wanted to get into the weeds. He wanted to go through every beat. He wanted to like just really get into the character, and just really like, he was a hard worker, which just lets there's reasons why people like that rise up to level they are, because they just work so hard. But he was also just a sweetheart. I remember we're all in the Caymans, and he and I are chatting one night. He always wanted to know about you and your family and all that other stuff. He was just such a giver as well. And he knew that my wife was a teacher, and I casually mentioned how she had mentioned to her class something about him being in the film. I think there's a press release that come out anyway. And one of the girls was a huge Full House fan. And somehow I also mentioned in the conversation that she was having like a hard time socially, or something was going on with her family and whatnot. And Bob, on his own, I didn't ask him to do this, recorded a message on his phone for this little girl and then emailed it to me to send to her. And I think that's the kind of thing he did regularly, right? He just, on his own time, his own accord. I wouldn't like beg him to do it. So it's just like, that was like, those are the kind of things I think of when I remember Bob, but because he was, he was a lovely guy, but also a troubled guy to some extent. I think all comics are, right? Like, we're all tortured inside, and that's how you see these two different sides of a lot of guys like that. But, he was deep down, he was a lovely human being who just really cared a lot about others.
Oh, that's nice. So transitioning now into
the
content creation. So I know that it started off as a blog. Was it a blog of just like your journey turning into plant-based diet, or was it after the fact that you started the blog and then it turned into what it is now?
Yeah, it started off actually with a totally different name. It was called Former Fat Forker because my
That's right.
original
That's right. Yeah.
iteration of it was like to take my kind of tone I had as a filmmaker, a little edgy, a little snarky, and just kind of transfer that into that because I'm like, oh, that'll hit. I was also, I think, probably just trying to rip off this other great duo called that at the time they were called Thug Kitchen, and then they rebranded as Bad Manners later on. That were just these edgy like vegans, and I'm like, and I like their tone, so I was probably just trying to steal it, not realizing that that's not the demo for those for that audience
And
anyway,
it's like
right?
they're talking about niche down. That's like down, down, down.
Yeah, that's a very specific. So it wasn't a great move at the beginning, but what it ultimately just became like so just to give a a quick capsulation of that is I used to be a very overweight person, and I wanted to just be healthier. I've been trying to lose weight my entire life, and then finally I just woke up one day and I was like, I'm gonna do it properly. And through the course of the research, at that point, my wife was a vegetarian, and so I was a pescatarian at that point. And just in a lot of the research I was doing, I saw guys like Penn Jillette, Kevin Smith had gone vegan at that point. And just looking at them and their like weight loss transformations and seeing the connections, and started reading all the guys that they were talking about, and the doctors they were looking at. And I was like, why don't I try this for a little bit and just see if it doesn't stick, right? And so literally within, I don't know, like a year and a bit, I lost half my body weight going plant-based largely. And going to the gym, it wasn't just that. It was like, I always said that I changed three things. I changed the way I moved, and I changed the way I ate, but most importantly, I changed the way I thought. And if I hadn't done that, none of the other stuff would have fit, right? So it was actually after the fact, because what happened was I started just to get a lot of people asking me, well, how did you do it? What did you do? Blah, 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 blah. And so I started to kind of just, after writing a lot of emails or messages back and forth, just going, well, what if I just can't spend all my life writing the same email over and over again. Let me start compiling some of this information so I can just cut and paste it when the time comes. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. I'm like, why don't I just put this up somewhere? So I got a website. And I don't know why. Here's the thing. It's like, if I had thought about it properly, I would have started this YouTube channel in a real way like 5 years ago, But at that point, I was still really ingrained in the idea of just wanting to focus exclusively on being a filmmaker and working in television, traditional film and television, which we'll talk about, but I've shifted dramatically away from that mindset later than I should have. So when I started off doing YouTube with it, I was just doing it very half-assedly. It was just more like a video here or there. Because I had already had a YouTube channel as a filmmaker, but I'd only really used it to post some trailers. When I did crowdfunding campaigns for some of my movies I would post videos there. But there was no regularity to it. I was just not doing it in any professional way. I was just posting stuff on YouTube as a place to post stuff, And then, but even when I started doing PB with a Former Fat Forker on YouTube, it was no regularity. I hadn't studied YouTube at that point. I didn't realize that it was something you could study and master and learn in a way like it was. I didn't look at it like a business yet, right?
What year was it that you started posting on YouTube? Like
for that channel started in 2019.
Okay.
But so 5 years ago. But I can tell you right now, it probably didn't really start until 3 years after that. I say that I properly started in YouTube probably in like 2022 is when I sat down and started to doing it seriously and took it and went, I'm going to spend a year doing this properly and see what I can do with it.
Okay.
Is when that happened. But that came out of, actually, I know one of the questions you sent me in advance was like, have I ever thought about doing like something with my filmmaking in YouTube? And the truth is that was actually my first idea before. Like I had the Former Fat Forker was up there. I hadn't rebranded it just yet. I was getting to the point of doing that because I had gotten an opportunity to get some money from Bell 5 to make like a local vegan cooking show. And so I knew at that point that I wanted to rebrand and call it something different. So I started to shift it all around for that. But I'd started to study YouTube around that time because I realized, I'm like, the good thing about the Bell 5 situation was that they gave you a bunch of money to make this thing, but then they only had like a really short window of exclusivity on it, and then you could resell it or put it somewhere else. And so I was like, oh, I can take this stuff and put it on YouTube later on, right? And so I started to really, really study YouTube. And at the same time, I was feeling, the frustration you were talking about at the beginning as being just a Canadian filmmaker. And this idea of like, one of the things I like to say is we don't have a creativity problem in Canada. We have a distribution problem. Our distributors don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know how to market a movie. I'm sorry. I have friends that are distributors that you don't. You just don't know how to do it unless all the other work is done for you because you have a famous actor in it. The only time they can make money on a movie is if other things came into play. They don't have any skills around that. It just, they do the bare minimum and take as much money from you as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the way it is. And I'd love any distributor to prove me wrong. Come at me if you can defend yourself in another way. I won't get into specifics and name names. And I've had good relationships with them. They're all lovely people, but they're just ineffective.
Yeah. They're just incompetent.
Well, but also the audience just doesn't, they never knew how to market to their audience, right? So that was always a problem. So I remember I was literally at a film festival and I'd been studying YouTube a little bit, and I kind of just went, at that point I had 2 films, both Sex After Kids and The Untitled Work of Polish Apart, and How to Plan an Orgy was getting there, where I'm like, I think these 3 films are all going to become available again. Like, the deals I have with my distributors are going to lapse in the next year or 2. And I was like, I could do whatever I want with those films. I was like, why shouldn't I just post them on YouTube so people could watch them, right? I'm not going to make any money off of it probably. But then I went, wait a minute, can I make money off of it? Because, for those, I assume this is an audience of people that want to know nerdy stuff about YouTube. So we can get into that.
It's a twofold. It's filmmakers that want to know all the nerdy stuff about content creation because
great.
It's to educate them so that they can make that shift and get away from
I'm going to drop a lot of nerdy shit here, right here. So here's the thing. Well, because this is what I was sitting and going, is like, well, I don't have enough content. Because the thing about YouTube, too, that I was learning at this point is that YouTube rewards the channels that show up regularly, right? So if you post on a regular schedule, the algorithm of YouTube knows to prioritize you and push you out to an audience. But if you're only posting infrequently at random times, they don't know. My schedule is the same every single week for YouTube. I post twice a week, regular videos, and I do lives infrequently. But for the 2 regularly scheduled ones, it's the same day and time, both those days of the week. And I don't miss an upload. And I haven't yet in the last 2 years. I just have that schedule, and I try to work like 3 to 4 weeks ahead if I can. So I've got like my content for the next month already either planned or in process or working through, right? And I've got content for like the next year, kind of like idealized. Like I know what I'm doing. I think of like YouTube as Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors. You have to feed it constantly. And if you feed it, it will grow.
Yeah.
And it will start to eat the world. No.
It is eating the world.
But that was it is. It literally, and we'll get into that. I'll share all my nerdy facts. Okay, so I have 3 projects that I could put up there, right? And maybe some bonus features and that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I need like a regular stream. And so I was like, well, wait a minute. There's like tons of other Canadian filmmakers and other filmmakers I've met from other parts of the world throughout festivals. There's got to be a bunch of us that have these projects, right? So I'm like, why don't I create a YouTube channel for posting older movies like that can become like a co-op, and we all get a share in it. We all get to own it. And I set up a whole presentation. Like I need at least 100 films to launch it, right? I want to have like at least a year or 2 worth of content. I could not get enough people interested because for them, YouTube was not serious.
Wait. You couldn't get people interested?
No, I could not get enough people interested to do it. Because they're like, well, but if I put it there, then I can't sell it to whatever.
Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna
Plex, to Plex or Tubi or whatever, like and get $300 from them.
Oh my
You
God,
know,
that's so
whatever.
annoying.
Like,
You know what? Since this is going to go out, you're going to get your 100 filmmakers. Sign up for
no, it's too late because you know
it's
what?
too late.
Someone else can do it. I'm not going to run it. Here's the thing. If someone wants to contact me, because I put a lot of thought and effort into how I would do it, I'm happy to chat with somebody. It's not to say not any filmmakers were interested. I had some people that were, but it just wasn't enough. And I was just starting to feel annoyed by the people I was talking to, and just kind of the arrogance and like the attitude of like, nah, well, I'll think about it, but I really want to just get that sweet Tubi money. It's like, great, go back and get it. Let me know how you're doing in a year. Here's the thing is like, I did all that time. I did all that research, and I'm going to share all the research in just a minute. But what happened was I had done like so much research. I knew what to do with a YouTube channel. And then I was like, wait a minute. Why don't I take all this information I've learned and just do my own with my food stuff? And that's when I sat down and go, I'm going to do this for sure. I'm going to put like a real serious effort into this for the next year. And if after a year it's not monetized and making a decent amount of money, well, then it was a failed experiment and I was wrong and YouTube isn't the future. And I'm telling you right now, I wasn't wrong. And it was just that. It was like, I felt like I was handing like all these people a solution to their problem. And they all just had and it's the same problem as like filmmakers don't take YouTube seriously because for them, it's just not the same as sitting in a theater. I could go on and ad nauseum, and I will, about just how outdated and just sad that mentality is now. So let me drop the facts. And this is part of the presentation I gave to people, right?
Oh my
so
God,
here's
I love
the
this
YouTube
so much.
facts.
I'm so excited.
And I'll tell you this right now, this is outdated. So these numbers are way larger now. You know, this presentation is probably 2 years old.
Okay.
So take that with a grain of salt. So at the time of there was 2.6 billion users on YouTube, and 122 million daily active users. It's in 100 countries in 81 languages. And nowadays, this wasn't true then, but you can like set your language so that YouTube has AI built into it that can do subtitles for you in all these different languages. So you don't have to worry about a language barrier, and you can grow in other countries where you don't speak their language because YouTube will do the subtitles. And they're even getting to the point where they're doing dubbing as well. And it won't be long before that's standard across the platform. 2% of the internet users in North America are on YouTube daily. That's more than half of people that use the internet use YouTube. 98% of people that use the internet use it once a month. Almost every single person that uses the internet uses YouTube, right?
Yeah.
It's the second most popular social network. It's the second most powerful SEO on the internet, meaning search engine, for those that don't know. The first most powerful search engine is Google, which owns YouTube. And when you search something on Google, it prioritizes YouTube's as well as part of the search engine.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? 2 years ago, it brought in $30 billion worth of ad revenue, and I think it's doubled since then. They have strong and a lot of people think of like, well, YouTube's for kids and younger people. It's not at all. More people watch YouTube on their television now than they do on any other device. And they watch it like they do television, which is why YouTube actually now prioritizes longer content. Right? In terms of like, and again, this is outdated, and I think it's even more despairing now. If you look at I have a pie chart in front of me, users by all the top platforms, if you put Netflix, Prime, Disney, and like HBO Max together, they equal 25% of the streaming content. YouTube has the other 75.
Oh my God.
So it's 3 times bigger than all of the other platforms together.
And people think it's saturated.
And people are desperate to, yeah. And then you talk to filmmakers who you're like, hey, do you want to get your film on YouTube? They're like, no, I'm holding up for that Netflix sale. It's like, okay, great.
That you won't make any money off of, but you'll make money on YouTube.
And also it's like, and the thing about it is that people, to watch my movie on Netflix, someone has to have a Netflix subscription. To watch my movie on YouTube, someone just has to sit through 30 seconds of commercials. I'm going to put all of my eggs in my own basket. Why am I helping all these other people who don't want to be helped? Was kind of what my philosophy became.
Oh my God, we could have a podcast alone on that. Oh my God. This will just turn into like Bitch Fest with Angie and Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, I totally feel you, man. Because the film and entertainment industry is very glitz and glamour. People want to have the fanciness with being a
But
filmmaker.
that's
They're like, well, if
but
this Joe Schmo could be on YouTube.
you know what it is? It's like it's a stamp of approval, and I get that, right? The idea is if I got my TV show on the air or if I got my film in theaters, it meant that other people qualified me. Other people said I was worthy. I don't know. Maybe just decide you're worthy on your own. You know, maybe don't need the validation of some broadcast executive who is actually just terrified for their own job and they're making the safest, most boring decisions in what they're choosing to fund. Because that's the reality of it. It's like they're not funding things today because it's the most unique, interesting thing they can put on the air. They're funding it because it's safe and they think it won't get them fired. And that's the choices they're making. They're making things that tick off boxes for whatever reason and that are going to be maybe enjoyed by the masses. If you're able to like find something that had IP attached to it, even better. You know, nobody's taking risks in traditional media at all. A24, that's about it. There's A24 and then everyone else is just trying to just recycle all of their IP they've already got over and over again ad nauseum is basically what the majority of, and it just seems so boring and lame. The most innovative stuff is happening on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
is creating its own streaming to kind of separate the content creation and to have something for like series. So if you want a web series or a movie or something like that, they're going to be creating for creators to create their own series and stuff like that and have it separated. So if you want a series, then you go to YouTube streaming or something like that.
Yeah, I think they are trying to do that because that is, I mean, I will say from a narrative point of view, creating on YouTube is complicated because you can't do it on your own. Like you do, like if you want to hire actors and it's just like, you basically have to, YouTube is not going to give you money up front.
Yeah.
Right? Is the problem is you've got to create all this stuff on your own to get it up there. So it does make it very, YouTube is not built for scripted at this point, unless you've got some kind of person bankrolling you. So I will give the caveat to that, is that YouTube can't, and I can see why filmmakers look at YouTube as something that is like, well, that's not for me because how am I going to bankroll a feature and put it up on YouTube and make money from it? I don't know if you can, yet. That it does make it hard unless you join a co-op, which is what I was trying to create. And the hope was going to be is like, if we can grow that to the size it was, because at that point I actually went, and I'm sure this is not popular now, but I don't want to say lucky anymore, but I got an opportunity and I went down to North Carolina and I got to study the Mr. Beast team for a little bit. Yeah. And then there's, and I'll say right now, without going into horrendous detail about it, like all the allegations that have come out about their team and all the other stuff over the summer, none of it shocked me. Like, I didn't see any of that kind of stuff firsthand, but just the conversations I overheard, the things none of it was shocking to me. But also just the way, because it was fascinating in one way, because just watching these people, kind of almost recreate a Hollywood system inside of YouTube. Right. But they just had to, but I watched
including the shadiness that goes on in Hollywood.
Yeah, well, that's just it, right? An irony. So, but just the idea of going, okay, this is the amount of money they were making was insane. And I was there before they had even hit 100 million, and now they're 230 million subscribers, right? And at that point, their ad revenue was millions of dollars a month, not even counting sponsors, right? And I'm looking at that going, if you could get if you could build a co-op, you could fund your own indie films through a YouTube channel. And that was kind of what I was excited about. The idea was what if we could create our own little indie studio using YouTube?
Oh, that's so genius. I really hope people get inspired to start doing that, because I think it's going in the direction where people have to start doing that, because I mean,
it's either that or it dies. Right now, again, it's I don't want to get negative and I don't want to discourage people, but there's
scare people, but there's hope.
No, but I also want to give, there's hope if you get your head out of your ass. Because this is what I stopped teaching at film schools about a year ago, because I couldn't walk into those rooms and just make those people feel good about the money they were spending on going to film school and for the industry in the shape it was in. It just felt like I was part of a system that was lying to them. Because, and I just can't, I'm just not that person. I'm honest to a fault. And I just had a hard time walking in those rooms and making them feel like there was a future for them in traditional media.
Yeah.
Because the two metaphors I have for our industry is that it's a street on fire. And you have these people standing on the outside going, hey, is there any houses available to move on to? And it's like, what? It's on fire. Like, do you not see, like, well, that's just it. If for those of us in the Canadian system who subscribe to playback, it just feels like there isn't a week that goes by you don't see these jobs are being cut at Rogers or Bell, or this company bought this company and laid off all these people. It's like, it's just a nonstop stream of just like, we don't know what we're doing, and we're constantly just shuffling around the deck chairs on the Titanic. And that's what our industry feels like. It's just people that are just scrambling with no plan. There's no plan in place. It's just panic. And it's like a street on fire. And I look at it, and that's my one metaphor for people that don't want to move into it, going, like, hey, there's a forest fire. Let's go for a hike. It's like,
that house is only half burned down. Maybe I can move it.
Yeah, I think we can get a deal. Well, that's just it. We can get a deal on it. It's half on fire. It's like, yeah, but it's half on fire because the fire's still on, right? The fire didn't go out. It's still burning down. So there's that mentality. I just don't like, but because you also like, I think the problem with the people that are always at the beginning of their career in the traditional industry is they have not put any time into researching the actual state of the industry and how the business side of it works. They're just excited by the creative, as they should be. That's what inspires us all to get into this, right? But they don't realize how impossible it is, especially now. It's always been hard, but now it just feels like I don't know when people are like, what advice would you give me as an emerging filmmaker? I'd like, you go to figure out YouTube.
Yeah.
Is my advice. I just don't have advice for the traditional industry right now. And it's not to say I'm not ever going to make another film or try to get a TV show going. Still, like, I still have projects I'm working on, but I'm just not holding my breath. Those are things that I'm doing on the side because I feel like those are lottery tickets that, you can't put your hopes and dreams in lottery tickets,
The star system that was holding it up is crumbling because people don't have heroes anymore because they're t-shirts, but like there's like people don't admire people anymore that are
there was never a star system in Canada.
There was never that. No, that was never.
There's never that. But even the one, and the problem with the star system in the States is you've got and I've been through this just in casting my own projects, is that there's a discrepancy between what the investors in film and television think certain actors are worth and what their agents think they're worth. And I wish they would just talk to each other, because you end up being the middleman that's got to go, well, the agent wants more money for their client, and then you've got the person paying for the movie going, they're not worth it. Let's just talk about YouTube now, because it's depressing to talk about the industry. I think I've said enough.
We got it. Let's talk about fun stuff. Just tell one little story, and then we'll drop the industry's on fire.
Sure.
Because what did it for me was me and my writing partner, Sincero, we adapted her one-woman show, and it got us into a ton of doors. We were talking to all the networks, we were talking to all the executive producers, everybody, and then things started to go on fire. And people were being laid off. So they said, one production company said, maybe try to take it a different direction and make it a web series. So we talked to CBC Gem, and they said, okay, we actually want to have a conversation with you about what we have planned and talk about it, because they really like the script. So we're thinking, maybe they'll hire us for something. And then an hour before our meeting, we got an email from them saying that the original department got let go and that our meeting is canceled.
The original department got let go.
At
the most
CBC
depressing.
Gem.
The original department get let go. Our ID department doubled though. We have the original department got let go.
Are you kidding me? So the people that we were even supposed to meet, I don't know if they had jobs anymore. They're just like, I'm out. Our meeting's canceled. No one's here. And that's when I said, F this. I'm out. I'm done. I am done. Because if it sucks to
have done that when you're very close, but at the same time, I said, I am so done with someone else dictating how my life is going to go. So I wanted to have autonomy over my creativity, over what I do with it. And then I started getting serious about content creation and like marketing and entrepreneurship. And now the blinders have been taken off, and I want to scream at the rooftops for all these other creatives to be like, stop. You need to do this now. You need to think like an entrepreneur. We need to stop.
It's the allegory of the caves. It's like, it's not stop staring at the cave wall. Just comedy and whatnot. You look at, like, there is a way to do it. Like, you look at, there's two great Canadians that do it. Julie Nolke and Ryan George are two fantastic YouTubers.
I love Julie.
Yeah, and Julie does acts in traditional stuff as well. But they both do kind of like their like little shorts on their own channels. And Ryan, of course, is famous for Pitch Meeting, is like his big breakout series. But he has his own, just Ryan George, it's a channel where he gets to do his own little skits and sketches. And it's interesting, like they both kind of, I think, got famous like doing sketches with themselves, like playing both parts and just shooting it like that. Because you can control that. You don't have to schedule somebody else. You can shoot it in your own apartment against a green screen or whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And both of them have, over 1 million subscribers now. And I'm sure they're doing very well with both, the money they make from AdSense, but also probably from sponsors, It's probably more money than they need, and they don't need to do anything else if they didn't want to. And good for them, But it also allows them, if they want to, do a slightly bigger sketch or do collabs. And they've done collabs with each other. So I think in that sense, it's not impossible to do some scripted stuff. I think you just have to start small and scale up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's people want to chase the carrot, and they realize it's like you have to go back to the basics of why you did this in the first place. You got to think about the stories you want to tell, what you really want to do. If you like shooting stuff, then make a channel, but then make a really pretty film channel where you get to shoot it wherever the hell you want, and like. There's so many possibilities of what you want to do.
Well, and the beautiful thing about YouTube is this too, and this is what I've loved about what I've been able to do on my channel, because every time I've thought something would work, I was always wrong. It's in.
I want to know about that because I struggle with that too.
Yeah, well, and this is what I love, because I think like we come from the traditional roots, or especially when you're creating like a series. It's like, well, this is what an episode's going to look like, and this is what our show is. And this is what it's not. And it has to follow this parameters and bullshit. And it was interesting. So when I started PB with J proper, my idea was this. I had this chunk of money I was getting from Bell 5. And I was like, okay, great. Well, after I air it there, I can then like take these 6 episodes and cut them up into chunks. And I can probably have 30 or 40 videos out of that I can post, right? And repurpose. And there'll be well shot. I'll have a crew for it. It's going to be great. And then hopefully, and as those go, the channel will grow and I'll get money from it that I'll be able to hire the crew back to do it on my own. And it'll become self-serving. Those videos did not do super well. They didn't do badly on YouTube, but they didn't set the world on fire the way I was hoping to. You know what I mean? But it did okay, but it just kind of chugged along. And then I got my head out of my butt and I kind of went, okay, so if I'm going to do YouTube for this year I've pledged, I got to look at it a different way. I'm not going to have a crew. I've got to be able to do it with my phone. So everything I shoot has to be able to be shot on my phone, has to be edited on my laptop, and it has to probably be shot in my house, right? So that's what I've got to make. Those are the things I have, and I'm not going to have time to light it. I don't have a professional lighting package in my house. So I'm just going to light it. I do have a couple lights that I use for some things, but I'm not going to have time to set up microphones every time. It's like literally 90% of what's on the channel is shot on my phone, no external mics.
Really? Just your phone?
And just my phone. Wow. I also say that it's like, and the other thing that I wanted to do with our channel too, because I spent a lot of time researching other like plant-based vegan channels. And what I saw a lot of is what I'll call like skinny people in white kitchens. With like perfect lighting, and they all looked amazing and their lives were amazing and their food was gorgeous. And I was like, I'm going to do the opposite. My kitchen's going to be a mess because that's what my kitchen looks like half the time. And the lighting in it sucks. And I'm going to shoot it on this. And sometimes my kids will run into the room and interrupt me, and that'll be okay. And sometimes the food won't turn out exactly the way I wanted it to, and that'll be okay. And I'll just be me, and that'll be okay. And that's what makes our channel work. Is once I started leaning into the realities of who I am, what our life is, that's when our channel started to like really roll along. Because what people liked was, well, also, and this goes back to what I said at the beginning. I let people know they weren't alone. I was connecting to people and they're going, I feel that. I've been in that kitchen. Your kitchen looks like my kitchen. That's how my food looks like. It doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look like an art director came in and tweaked it. You know, it's real. It's like it goes all the way back to why I wanted to become a filmmaker in the beginning, because I now literally have to devote like hours of my week, and I don't have to. I do it because I like it and I want to answering comments and emails from people daily who reach out to us because our content has helped them lose weight, get off their diabetes medication, whatever it is. That we've helped like dozens and dozens of people improve their quality of their lives, you know, which is 10 times more rewarding than that best day I had watching that guy laugh at that theater in Calgary, you know, because literally every day I wake up and I know I'm going to get a message from somebody saying that something in our content helped them. Because literally a day doesn't go by that I don't get those messages. And that just fuels me, you know? And it's nice. I get, you know, we're making money on the channel and it's, you know, very quickly becoming my main source of income. That's great. That helps me be able to do it from a logistical point of view. But, you know, it's that age-old thing where it's like, find something you love doing that you would do for free and it doesn't feel like work. You know, and that's what this has become for me. It's just, but it's great because it's like, we have a couple, what I'd call series and formats we do on the channel that I can like, well, I'll do another video like this. Like we do cookbook reviews, you know, where I'll take like a random vegan book or sometimes not a vegan book and I'll like cook with our family for a week and we'll give our real feedback. And the audience loves that because we don't hold back. You know, my kids don't care. They're not, they don't
especially
care about,
kids.
Yeah, they don't care, but say, you know, I try to teach them to be respectful, don't be rude.
Yeah.
You know, obviously a human being created this recipe, so let's be. But so the audience loves that too, you know, and that's led to where literally I'm just putting the finishing touches on a cookbook we're launching next month. That came out of that idea is like, oh, like the four of us in our family all have kind of different tastes, and so we don't all agree on the food all the time. Like we'll argue about like a meal, like our kids will hate it, my wife and I will love it. And so the beauty of this cookbook is it's like as opposed to breaking down the chapters by like breakfast, lunch, and dinner and dessert, it's broken down by each of our family members. And it's like, if you have the palate of Annie, this chapter's for you. And if you have my palate, this chapter's for you.
I love that. It's based on your palate. That's so awesome. That's so good.
But that just came organically from just leaning into where this is going. And that's what I've loved about creating on YouTube is that I'll have an idea, but also this, right? As a filmmaker, if I woke up one day with an idea for a movie or even a short, say, from the time of me waking up to the time where I got to sit down and show it to an audience is, if I'm lucky, a year, probably longer, usually a lot longer.
Very lucky if it's a year.
Right? That happened once with me when I did Sex After Kids. I was
Really?
I had the idea for the movie, and 2 days short of a year later, I was in a movie theater premiering at a film festival. And that was an insane process. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to bring you back and just talk about that process alone. Okay.
Right. But I could wake up literally this morning, have an idea for a YouTube video. I could record it in the morning, edit it in the afternoon, and put it up that night. And no one can tell me I can't do it.
I love it.
I don't have to go to a broadcaster. I don't have to get funding. All I have to do is sit down and want to do it. And I've done that a couple of times. And those are the videos that sometimes it dies and fizzles. But that's the other thing too, is like, it doesn't matter if you get 1,000 at-bats on YouTube, right? And especially when you're starting off a channel, just experiment. anyone that wants to start a YouTube channel, plan to fail for a year, right? Give yourself a year. You're going to suck at it at the beginning. It's going to take you a while to find your voice and to figure out what you like to make and what people respond to. And the best thing about it is it has unparalleled analytics to anything else that you've ever dealt with in your life as a creator. The amount of feedback you're going to get from the YouTube studio that will tell you your, genders, where they live, how long they watch for, where they stop watching. Like, just the analytics inside of it are unprecedented, But also, the reason why I read and respond to every single comment is because that's what gives me ideas for future videos,
Yeah.
I just, but also just talking about the numbers, we mentioned, like, if I make an indie film and, a year and then 2 years from now, I'm lucky enough that it's in the theaters. I don't know how many people get to watch that movie over the course of its life, realistically, as a Canadian filmmaker.
Oh my God.
I don't know, maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah.
So, for example, I had this lovely email from this woman in the Netherlands, talking about how she's a single mom and she's disabled and all she has to cook with is a microwave and she wants to eat plant-based. Is there any suggestions? I said, I'm going to make a video for you. So I made a video where I was like, I'm going to make like 4 days worth of eating, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert, all made in a microwave using nothing else. Posted that video on Wednesday, 2 days ago. It has 6,000 views.
Wow.
I'm just saying, I don't know if 6,000 people watched a movie that took me 4 years to get made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm getting real-time feedback. And also I'm helping this person, And people in the comments of that video, I haven't even had time to sit down and respond to them yet. There's so many people like, oh, can you make more like this? Please, like, I could use this too. It's not just for single parents. Like, I'm a university student. This is going to be so helpful to me.
Oh,
it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just like that real-time feedback. But if I hadn't listened to my audience, I wouldn't have had that idea. The same thing as I had someone, like, I always use this ingredient called aquafaba, which is literally just the juice that's from a can of chickpeas, right? It's stuff you normally throw out, but you can use it as an ingredient, as like an egg replacement. So I made a video called like Aquafaba is Magic or no, Aquafaba 101 or something like that, on a whim, because someone said, hey, I'd love you to just put all of your Aquafaba information in one video. That video has over 100,000 views.
Oh my God.
And I wouldn't have made that video if someone hadn't have said, hey, I'd love a video on this.
Man.
But that's just it. So you can really, and you can do polls through your channel. Like, it's a really great dialogue you get to have with your audience.
It's crazy and too, because if you told some filmmakers spend a year practicing and trying YouTube for a year, they would say, a year? It's like, how long would it take you to make one film? How long
would it take you to write a script?
It takes you a year to write a script. So it's like, it's like, what is a year? So what's a year?
Make a new video once a week and put it up there.
Yeah.
And just commit to that. One video a week.
Yeah.
And you'll get better at it. But also, like, but it does take time. Like, it will take time to grow that audience and figure it out. The thing to understand, too, about YouTube, right? When it comes to the monetization of YouTube, is that YouTube does not, how do I explain this? It doesn't sound depressing. YouTube pays you differently. There's no equity on YouTube in terms of how it pays you, right? Mm-hmm. It pays you what's called CPM, which is cost per mile. It's like an old advertising metric. It's like it pays you basically per 1,000 views, right? The YouTube average is across the entire platform is $5 per 1,000 views, right? Mm-hmm. And depending on what your niche is, it's higher or lower, right? So for entertainment, it's around 5 or a little bit lower. For gaming, it's the lowest. Gaming is the lowest that pays because there's the most content for that. There's more gaming content on YouTube than anything else. So it's just worth less to the advertisers because they've got so many things to choose from, right? So it's hard to make a lot of money, but they have the most views too, right? So it kind of equals out. The beauty is the more niche you are, the more it goes up. So to pull back the curtain on our channel, so the average on YouTube is $5 per 1,000 views. A lot of my videos, I'm getting 30. So it's 6 times the YouTube average.
Wow.
Not all of them, but some of them. Some of them are triples, but none of them are 5. I don't have any of them that are 5. They're all above because we are a much smaller niche that doesn't have as much content as it has viewers for that content. So our advertisers pay a higher premium for it because they want to reach that audience.
Right.
You know?
Good to know.
But it's also,
We're gonna have a part two.
Yeah, but we can get into that. But and when it comes to you, because at some point too, as a YouTuber, here's when you know you've made it as a YouTuber, is you will start getting emails from companies wanting to partner with you and offer to do sponsorships and send you free stuff. And usually they don't want to pay; they'll try to get out of paying. But and that's a whole other conversation about figuring out how much do I charge for that, you know? And it's a complicated answer. But what's interesting is that, you know, that company, usually most companies know what their demographic is too, right? And what's great is you can look at your demos and go, well, okay, I'm very popular with this age group and this gender and from these countries. And those brands that you're potentially talking to, they know what their market is. So you can say, yeah, our things align.
Oh, great.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's really, really helpful for that as well, because they know it's actually worth giving you that little extra money that you're asking for because you're going to speak directly to our customers.
Yeah.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface. Yeah.
This is so great. Thank you so much. What's the name of your cookbook?
It's just going to be called PB with J Family Favorites.
I love it. And it's coming out.
It's going to, oh God. The plan
maybe
is it's gonna we're next week. So I don't know when you're posting this, but we're gonna start we're putting out a pre-order for it next week, which will be if all goes well, I'll have the pre-order link up on November 30th. Okay. And the plan, as long as nothing comes up and destroys my world in between now and then, is that we're gonna release it on the 27th. Of November.
Okay. Oh, great.
So,
great Christmas gift.
So like almost a month from now. Yeah, that was the idea, Mike. I was like, we either have to get it out before the beginning of December or there's no point in doing it until the new year. So that's but it's the same as anything. It's like until you set a deadline, nothing ever happens, right?
Exactly.
So we're racing against the clock but also like because one of our biggest kind of video series we do on the channel is cookbook reviews. I was like, I can't put out a shitty cookbook. It's gotta like
that's
all
so
the things
true.
I complain, all those things I complain. Well, that's just it. I was like, and you know, to be fair, I deserve it. So I was like, I gotta put all the things I complain about. I gotta make sure our book doesn't do.
Ooh, that's a lot of pressure, dude.
Sure is. This has been my philosophy, and even like on the last couple films I made was this idea of like just giving yourself permission to fail. And I'm also just going, this is our first ebook. We're going to make more. And we're going to get some stuff wrong. And we're going to have some happy accidents. And we'll make some mistakes. And we'll get better. You know? Yeah. And it's the same philosophy I've had the whole way with YouTube. Is just like, and like I already mentioned, but it's like, YouTube just invites you with the ability to explore. You know? When you create a channel, you don't have a broadcast executive going, well, that doesn't really feel like our show. You get to decide what your channel is and what it becomes. And it can evolve over time. You know? There's no rules for length, for content, for anything. It helps if you kind of like keep it in a niche of some kind and create like a vision for it and go like, it's all about this, you know? And I would say, and you know, you can look at different sources that give YouTube information, but maybe this is a good parting thing. Is like, if you're going to create a YouTube channel, the first thing you should sit down and figure out who the perfect viewer is for your channel. Who is that person? And give them a name. Create a whole identity for that person. And so when you're talking to the camera, especially if you don't feel comfortable talking to the camera, that's who you're talking to. And just make content for that person. Content that will, delight them, make them laugh, solve a problem that they have. Whatever it is, whatever kind of channel you're making, make it for one very specific person. And then you'll magically end up making it for a lot of people. But just have that one audience member in mind. And you have to with YouTube. Anyone that goes, well, I just want to make content for myself. I'm like, well, that's great, but then don't expect other people to watch it. But on YouTube, you need to make 2 pieces of advice I'll depart with is make content for one specific person and make it in a way that makes them curious, you know?
Okay.
Have your content create a question And that's why, if you watch any kind of YouTube education, they'll always say title and thumbnail, title and thumbnail. And they're right. It's like, you've got to put as much thought into your title and thumbnail as you do your video, because if those two things don't work, they're not going to watch the video. So the video is the proof of concept. And you got to make sure they match. Don't make clickbait, but it doesn't matter how good your video is if nobody clicks on it. Don't get discouraged. Promise yourself that year, because it'll take a year to get some traction. And then one day something will click. And then all of a sudden it'll just kind of take off. And that's kind of what happened to ours too. Like literally ours just chugged along and chugged along and chugged along. And all of a sudden it was just like, it was like a light, like a switch went off. And all of a sudden the algorithm favored us. I still don't know what it was, but, but I think it was just consistency.
Yeah.
It was consistency, and the audience just kept on slowly building enough that it just knew that we were a channel that was worth recommending to other people.
Yeah, there's no failure, just data.
100%. There's no failure. It's just data. What did you learn? Do it differently next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Love you so much. I don't know this. I don't know how to end it. What do I do?
It's okay.
Oh my God, that was so incredible. I am so grateful for Jeremy and just his awesomeness and the nerdy shit that he dropped. I love it so much. So what we are doing right now, this is a segment in the podcast called Showstopper, where I introduce different creators, podcasters, journalists who all deserve a lot of love and know they do not know I'm doing this, and I am not getting paid to promote them because no one. So the first Showstopper is an award-winning Canadian journalist, Rachel Gilmore. I have been following her on TikTok. I love her. She really goes for it and really tries to find equality, and she really fights for inclusivity. And I am a big fan of hers. If you want to follow her on all of her socials, I have it in the show notes. My next Showstopper is a book that I'm reading right now called You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. It is easy to read. It's funny and very enlightening, and it has activities after every chapter for you to kind of help with your mindset around money. And it's been extremely helpful for me. And the last Showstopper is someone that I am obsessed with online. It's Lukey. He is a prime example of thinking outside the box. He is a songwriter and performer. He makes songs out of Tinder conversations, and they are hilarious. He is also in the show notes. Please check him out. Give him some love. Buy him a coffee. Everyone on here, I hope you can support in some way or another. We all need to just give the love and make everybody as rich as possible, because that is what this is all about. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much. Go out and be awesome. Thanks.